Ambassador Thesic had worked in the archive department for 200 years. It was boring work. Every day, he sat in his small office on Nexus Prime and updated star charts. He added new planets. He removed dead stars. He fixed small errors that nobody else cared about. The Galactic Council ruled over 12,000 species across 3 million star systems. Someone had to keep the maps correct. That someone was Thesic. He was a Velnari, a species that looked like tall, thin insects with 4 arms and large black eyes. His people were known for being careful and patient. They never made mistakes. That was why they were given jobs like this. Today, Thesic was updating the Orion Spur. It was a small arm of the galaxy, far from the center where important things happened. Most of the stars there had never been visited. They were too far away, too unimportant. His computer showed a yellow star called Sol. The third planet from this star was sending out radio signals. Thesic listened to some of them. Strange sounds, primitive music, voices speaking in languages his translator could barely understand. A Class 1-2 civilization. That meant they had basic technology but no faster than light travel. They were trapped on their own world. They had never met another species. They probably thought they were alone in the universe. Thesic almost moved on to the next star. There were thousands more to check. But something made him stop. A small feeling in his chest. His people called it the whisper of wrongness. It meant something was not right. He decided to check the ancient archive. The ancient archive was different from the normal database. It was old, very old. The precursors had created it over 12 million years ago, before they vanished from the galaxy. Nobody knew where the precursors went. Nobody knew why they left. They had been like gods, able to reshape stars and build worlds. Then one day, they were simply gone. They left behind their archive, a record of everything they had seen and done. Thesic entered the coordinates for Sol into the ancient archive search. He expected nothing. The Orion Spur was empty space. The precursors had probably never even visited. The computer made a sound. A result. Thesic leaned forward. His 4 hearts began to beat faster. The screen showed a file. It was marked with symbols he had never seen before. Red symbols. Warning symbols. The file was locked with the highest security level possible. Thesic was not important enough to open such a file. But he was a cartographer. He had access to location data. He could see the name the precursors had given this world. He opened the location data. For a long moment, he did not breathe. He read the words again. Then again. His hands began to shake. The precursors had a name for Earth. They called it Oregon Prime. Seed World Alpha 1. Thesic knew what those words meant. Every child in the galaxy knew the story of the seed worlds. The precursors had created life. They had taken empty planets and filled them with living things. They had guided evolution, helping simple creatures become intelligent species. Alpha 1 meant the first one. The very first seed world. The first place the precursors had ever created life. And Origin Prime meant something even more terrifying. It meant this was not just an experiment. It was the original. The template. The prototype for all life in the galaxy. Thesic pushed back from his desk. His chair fell over. He did not notice. The humans were the first children. The oldest creation of the precursors. The beginning of everything. But that was impossible. The first children were a legend, a scary story told to young ones. The text said the precursors had made a mistake with their first creation. The species they made was wrong, broken, dangerous. So the precursors had sealed them away and erased them from history. The text said the first children had destroyed themselves long ago. The texts were wrong. Thesic ran from his office. He ran down long hallways made of white crystal. He ran past other workers who stared at him with confusion. Velnari did not run. They were calm, patient, careful. Thesic was none of those things right now. He reached the communication center and pushed inside. A dozen workers looked up from their screens. "I need to send an emergency summons," Thesic said. His voice was shaking. "To the High Council, all senior ambassadors, every species." The communication officer, an old Silurian with gray scales, looked at him with tired eyes. "An emergency summons? Do you know what that means? It has not been done since the Void Plague. That was 3 million years ago. I know. You will need authorization from the High Chancellor herself. Then get her." Thesic grabbed the officer's arm. "Get her now. Tell her a cartographer found something in the ancient archive. Tell her the first children are alive." The officer laughed. Then he saw Thessic's face. The laugh died. "That is a myth," the officer said slowly. "A story for younglings. I have the coordinates. I have the precursor designation. They are alive. They are building starships. And they do not know we exist." The officer was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to his screen and began typing. His movements were fast, urgent. Within 1 hour, High Chancellor Morveth had seen the data. Within 2 hours, she had authorized the emergency summons. Within 1 day, faster than light messages were racing across the galaxy. They reached every senior ambassador of every spacefaring species. They carried the same simple message: emergency session. Nexus Prime. Mandatory attendance. Subject: Origin Prime. Many ambassadors did not understand. Origin Prime? They had never heard the term, but some of them had. The older species. The ones who had been in space for millions of years. The ones who remembered the old stories. Those ambassadors read the message and felt something cold spread through their bodies. They canceled all other meetings. They boarded their fastest ships. They traveled to Nexus Prime as quickly as possible, and they hoped, with every fiber of their being, that this was some kind of mistake. In his small office, Thessic sat alone. He stared at the star chart on his screen, the yellow sun called Sol, the small blue planet called Earth, the 8 billion creatures living on its surface. Completely unaware that the galaxy was now watching them, he thought about the stories he had heard as a child. The first children. The precursor's greatest failure. A species so dangerous that the most powerful beings in history had chosen to hide rather than fight them. Those creatures were real. They were out there. And they were almost ready to leave their world. Thessic turned off his screen. He could not look at it anymore. In the distance, he could hear ships arriving. Hundreds of them, thousands. Ambassadors from across the galaxy, coming to discuss a species that was supposed to be dead. The galaxy was about to learn that some things refused to die, no matter how hard you tried to kill them. The great chamber of the Galactic Council was the largest room ever built. It was a sphere of crystal and light, floating in space above Nexus Prime. 10,000 seats rose in circles around a central platform. Each seat held an ambassador from a different species. Today, every seat was full. High Chancellor Morveth stood on the central platform. She was made of living crystal, her body shifting between blue and purple as light passed through her. She was over 6 million years old. She had read more precursor texts than any other being in the galaxy. She had seen empires rise and fall. She had watched stars die. She had never been afraid before. Now, looking out at the thousands of faces watching her, she felt fear for the first time in her long life. "Thank you for coming," she said. Her voice rang through the chamber like a bell. "I know many of you traveled far. I know many of you are confused. You will not be confused for long." She raised one crystal hand. A hologram appeared above her, showing a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. This world is called Earth by its inhabitants. It is located in the Orion Spur, far from the center of the galaxy. 1 day ago, a cartographer named Thessic discovered its precursor designation. She paused. The chamber was completely silent. The precursors called it Origin Prime, Seed World Alpha 1. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the chamber exploded with noise. Ambassadors shouted. Some screamed. A few began to cry. Others stood frozen, unable to move or speak. Morveth waited. She let them feel their fear. She let them understand. Slowly, the noise faded. The ambassadors sat back down. They looked at her with wide eyes, waiting for her to tell them it was a mistake, a joke, anything but the truth. "I will now tell you what we know about the first children," Morveth said. "Some of you have heard stories. Those stories are incomplete. I have read the original precursor texts. I will share them with you now." She closed her eyes and began to speak. 12 million years ago, the precursors decided to create life. They had existed alone for billions of years. They wanted company. They wanted children. So they found an empty world and began their work. The hologram changed, showing an ancient Earth. Volcanoes erupted. Oceans boiled. Lightning struck the surface again and again. They designed their first creation carefully. They wanted a species that could survive, a species that could grow, a species that could one day join them among the stars. So they gave their creation gifts. Morveth opened her eyes. They made them adaptable, able to change to survive any environment. They made them creative, able to solve problems in ways the precursors could not predict. They made them determined, unable to give up, no matter what stood against them. She paused. They made them too well. The hologram showed creatures now. Small things, crawling from the ocean onto land, fighting, dying, evolving, growing. The first children did not develop like other species. They were too aggressive. They fought everything, including each other. They did not seek harmony or peace. They sought victory, dominance, survival at any cost. But surely, an ambassador called out, aggression alone is not enough to frighten the precursors. Many species are aggressive. Morvith turned to look at him. You do not understand. The first children developed something no other species has ever developed, something the precursors had not planned for. What? The ambassador asked. Will. The word hung in the air. Many ambassadors looked confused. I do not mean determination, Morvith explained. I do not mean stubbornness. I mean something deeper. The first children developed the ability to reject reality, to look at the universe and say, no, to face certain death and refuse to accept it. She showed them images from Earth, humans climbing mountains that should have killed them, humans crossing oceans in tiny boats, humans surviving in deserts and frozen wastelands where nothing should live. When the precursors made other species, those species accepted their place in the universe. They lived, they died, they were content. But the first children were never content. They saw death and called it an enemy. They saw limits and called them challenges. They saw the impossible and called it a goal. The precursors watched their creation for 1 million years. They watched wars and plagues and disasters. They watched the first children die again and again, and again and again. The first children survived. Not just survived, they grew stronger. Every catastrophe made them more determined, more dangerous. Morveth showed them data. Extinction-level events, asteroid impacts, ice ages, volcanic eruptions, climate changes. Each one should have killed humanity completely. None of them did. The precursors became afraid, Morveth said quietly. They had created beings who could not be stopped. Beings who would one day leave their world and spread across the galaxy. Beings who might one day challenge the precursors themselves. So what did they do? Someone asked. They ran. The chamber was silent. The most powerful beings in the history of the universe looked at their first creation and decided to hide. They erased Earth from their maps. They quarantined the system. They made sure no one would ever find it. And then, they left the galaxy entirely. The precursors fled because of one species? An ambassador said, disbelief in his voice. They left a final note in the archive, Morvith replied. I will read it to you now. She projected the words onto the hologram. Ancient symbols, translated into common language. We made them to survive anything. We did not anticipate that anything would include us. We cannot destroy them. We have tried. They adapt too quickly. They learn too fast. So we will leave. Perhaps, alone. They will destroy themselves. If they do not, may the galaxy forgive us for what we have created. The words faded. The chamber remained silent. There is one more thing, Morveth said. A prophecy, if you want to call it that. The precursors wrote it in their final days here. She showed them the last message. When the first children leave their cradle, the third era ends. What comes after? We cannot see. We can only hope it will not be terrible. Morveth lowered her hands. The hologram disappeared. We are in the third era now, she said. We have been for 6 million years. And the first children, the humans of Earth, have begun building starships. Primitive ones. Slow ones. But ships nonetheless. They will leave their world soon. Perhaps in 100 years. Perhaps in 50. Perhaps tomorrow. She looked out at the thousands of ambassadors. The leaders of the galaxy. The rulers of empires that had lasted millions of years. The question before this council is simple, she said. What do we do about humanity? The chamber erupted into chaos. Some ambassadors called for war. Others called for peace. Some wanted to build walls around the solar system. Others wanted to welcome humanity as friends. But beneath all the arguments, beneath all the plans and proposals, one feeling united them all: fear. The first children were awake, and the galaxy would never be the same again. 3 weeks after the emergency session, the Galactic Council was broken, not destroyed, Not dissolved, but broken into pieces that could not agree on anything. The ambassadors had split into groups, each with their own plan for humanity. They argued day and night, they shouted and threatened. Twice, fights had broken out in the hallways. The largest group called themselves the Extinctionists. They wanted humanity dead. Their leader was Supreme Commander Rethix of the Kreeth hegemony. The Kreeth were warriors, tall reptiles with armored scales and teeth like knives. They had conquered 50 star systems and never lost a war. Rethix stood before his followers, his yellow eyes burning with certainty. "The solution is simple," he said. "We send one fleet to their system. We destroy their cities. We burn their world. In 1 hour the problem is solved forever. They have no defenses that can stop us. They do not even know we exist. We arrive, we strike, we leave. No risk, no complications. No first children spreading across the galaxy like a plague." His followers cheered. Many other ambassadors nodded in agreement. The plan was brutal, yes, but it was also safe. The second group called themselves the Isolationists. They did not want to kill humanity, but they did not want to meet them either. The Communion of Whispers led this group. They were strange creatures, clouds of living gas that spoke directly into the minds of other beings. They valued peace above all things and believed violence was always wrong. "We build a wall," their speaker projected into the minds of the council. "A barrier of ships around their star system. Nothing leaves, nothing enters. We let them live, but we do not let them spread. In time, they will die on their own. All species do eventually." Many ambassadors liked this plan too. It felt less cruel than extinction. It allowed them to feel merciful while still protecting themselves. The third group was very small, only a few dozen ambassadors. They called themselves the Integrationists, and most of the council thought they were insane. Their leader was a young Silurian named Kythe. She was small for her species, with bright green scales and large golden eyes. She was only 200 years old, barely an adult by galactic standards. No one took her seriously, until she asked to speak. "I have done something forbidden," Keith said, standing alone on the central platform. "I have studied humanity directly. I have intercepted their radio transmissions. I have watched their visual broadcasts. I have read their literature." The chamber fell silent. Direct observation of primitive species was against the law. It could contaminate their development. It could expose the council's existence. "I did this because I wanted to understand them," Kythe continued. "The precursors called them dangerous. The legends call them monsters. I wanted to see for myself." "And what did you see?" High Chancellor Morvith asked. Kythe took a deep breath. "I saw a species at war with itself." She activated a hologram. It showed human history. Wars, genocides, atomic bombs, pollution, cruelty beyond imagination. "They are violent," Kythe said. "The precursors were right about that. They fight constantly. They kill each other over resources, over beliefs, over nothing at all. They have weapons pointed at their own cities. They could destroy their entire world in one afternoon." The Extinctionists smiled. This was exactly what they had said, but Kythe was not finished. "And yet," she said, changing the hologram, "they are also this." The images changed. Now they showed something different. Humans saving strangers from floods. Humans feeding the hungry. Humans building hospitals and schools. Humans risking their lives for people they had never met. "They have a word," Kythe said. "They call it conscience. It means a voice inside them that tells them what is right and wrong. They do not always listen to it, but it is there, always there, fighting against their darker nature." She showed them more. Stories where humans were the villains. Books warning against war and hatred. Films about the dangers of power. Songs about peace and love and hope. "They tell stories about destroying themselves," Kythe said. "They imagine every possible apocalypse. Nuclear war, plague, climate disaster, artificial intelligence turning against them, monsters from outer space." She looked at the Extinctionists. "They have imagined us. Many times. In their stories, aliens come to destroy them. And in those stories, do you know what happens? They lose," Rethix said with a cruel smile. "Sometimes," Kythe admitted, "but not always. Because their other great trait is hope. No matter how dark the story, no matter how powerful the enemy, They always imagine a way to survive. They imagine fighting back. They imagine winning. This is not just entertainment. This is practice. They are training themselves to face extinction. They have been doing it for thousands of years. Kythe turned to the full council. The precursors judged humanity by what they might become. But we have something the precursors did not have. We have time. We can watch them. We can wait. We can see what they choose to become. Maybe they will destroy themselves. Many of their own predictions say they will. But maybe, just maybe, they will become something else. Something new. Something the galaxy has never seen. A species that knows its own darkness and chooses light anyway. The chamber was quiet. Some ambassadors looked thoughtful. Others looked angry. The extinctionists shook their heads in disgust. "You are a fool," Rethix said. "A romantic child who has watched too many human entertainments. They are monsters. The precursors said so. And monsters must be destroyed before they destroy us." "The precursors ran away," Kythe replied calmly. "Perhaps they were not as wise as we believe." The argument continued for hours. When the vote was finally called, it was deadlocked. Not enough support for extinction. Not enough for isolation. Not enough for integration. The council decided to wait. To observe. To gather more information before making a final choice. But Rethix did not want to wait. That night, in the shadows of the Kreth flagship, he gathered his most loyal commanders. "The council is weak," he told them. "They will debate until the humans are at our doorstep. We cannot allow this. What do you suggest?" one of his commanders asked. Rethix smiled, showing all of his teeth. "We do not need the council's permission. We have the largest fleet in the galaxy. We have the weapons. We have the will. We go to Earth. We end this threat. And when we return, the council will thank us for our courage." His commanders nodded. They began preparing their ships. In 2 days, the Kreth battle fleet would jump to the Sol system, and humanity would learn they were not alone in the universe. Commander Sarah Chen was having a normal day on the International Space Station. She was checking the oxygen systems when the proximity alarm started screaming. She pushed herself to the observation window and looked out at the stars. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming. Space itself was tearing open. A hole appeared in the darkness, filled with swirling purple light. And through that hole came a ship. It was enormous. Bigger than anything humans had ever built. Bigger than most cities. It was covered in spikes and weapons and strange symbols that hurt to look at. It moved through space like a predator, slow and confident. Sarah grabbed her radio with shaking hands. "Houston, this is the ISS. You need to see this. You need to see this right now." On the Kreth Dreadnought Extinction's Herald, Supreme Commander Rethix watched Earth grow larger in his view screen. Such a small world. Such a fragile world. Blue and green and white. Covered in water and plants and the tiny structures humans called cities. "Open a communication channel," he ordered. "All frequencies. I want every creature on that planet to hear me." His communication officer obeyed. Static filled the air, then cleared. Rethix smiled and began to speak. "Creatures of Earth, I am Supreme Commander Rethix of the Kreth Hegemony. You have been judged by the Galactic Council and found unfit for existence. You have 60 of your minutes to make peace with your gods. This is not a negotiation. This is notification. We will begin bombardment in 1 hour. Nothing you do can stop this. Goodbye." He closed the channel and turned to his tactical officer. "Prepare the main weapons. Target their largest population centers first. I want this finished quickly." His tactical officer nodded and began working. Then he stopped. His face showed confusion. "Commander, they are responding." Rethix frowned. "Responding? Already? Let me hear it." The officer activated the speakers. At first, Rethix heard only noise, shouting, many voices speaking at once. He thought they were screaming in terror. Then he listened more carefully. They were laughing. Across Earth, humanity was not panicking. They were doing something the Kreth had never expected. They were getting ready. In Washington, the president picked up a red phone. "Get me every nuclear submarine commander, right now." In Moscow, generals pulled sealed folders from locked safes. Emergency plans, contingency protocols, preparations for exactly this scenario. In Beijing, satellites turned their cameras toward the massive alien ship. Computers calculated its size, its speed, its possible weak points. In secret bunkers around the world, Weapons that had never been used were activated. Kinetic bombardment platforms, experimental lasers, electromagnetic pulse devices. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. They had written stories about it, made movies about it, played games about it. Every possible alien invasion scenario had been imagined, discussed, and planned for. They had been waiting. On the ISS, Commander Sarah Chen watched her radio explode with traffic. Military codes, civilian warnings, government orders. In 30 minutes, the entire planet had shifted to war footing. A message came through, addressed directly to her. Commander Chen, this is Space Command. You are now a forward observer. Report everything you see. Help is coming. Help? Sarah said. What help? We don't have any weapons in space. We do now. 20 minutes later, Sarah saw something rise from Earth's surface. Then another. Then dozens. They were missiles, but not like any she had seen before. They moved fast, faster than anything she knew humans could build. On the Extinction's herald, alarms began to sound. Commander, the tactical officer said, his voice strange. They are launching weapons at us. Rethix laughed. Let them. Their primitive rockets cannot penetrate our shields. This will be entertaining. He watched the human missiles approach. Such slow, clumsy things. His shields could stop anything they carried. Nuclear warheads, kinetic impacts. It did not matter. Kreth technology was millions of years more advanced. The first missile hit his shields. The shields held easily. The second missile was different. It did not explode. Instead, it released a cloud of metal fragments that spread across his shields like water. And then the cloud began to eat. What is happening? Rethix demanded. Unknown material. His officer replied, fear creeping into his voice. It is consuming our shield generators. We cannot stop it. More missiles arrived. Some carried nuclear warheads that detonated exactly where the shields were weakest. Others carried strange devices that scrambled sensor systems. Others simply smashed into the hull with brutal force. The humans had not launched one weapon. They had launched every weapon, every nation, every secret program, every experimental device that had never been tested. Everything humanity had built in 70 years of imagining alien attacks. Rethix watched his shield status drop. 90%, 70, 50. Return fire, he screamed. Destroy them. His weapons lashed out. Energy beams, plasma bombs, technology that should have vaporized continents. The humans had planned for this too. Their cities had bunkers, deep underground shelters that had been built during something called the Cold War. Millions of people poured into them. The beams hit empty streets, empty buildings, empty land. And still the missiles kept coming. Rethix made a decision. Retreat, he said. His voice was quiet, broken. Open a jump portal. Get us out of here. Commander, we still have weapons. We can still. Look at the damage reports. Rethix grabbed his officer and pointed at the screen. 60% of our shields gone. Hull breaches on 12 decks, 3,000 crew dead, and they have not stopped firing. He looked at the view screen. Earth hung there, beautiful and terrible. And from its surface, more missiles were rising. They were ready, Rethix whispered. They knew we were coming. They have been preparing for this their entire existence. The jump portal opened. The Extinction's herald, the most powerful warship in the Kreth fleet, limped through the hole in space. Its hull was scarred and broken. Its weapons were drained. Its commander was silent. Behind them, humanity watched the alien ship flee. And then they did something that terrified the watching galaxy more than anything else. They celebrated. On Nexus Prime, the Council received the footage. They watched the battle. They watched the Kreth dreadnought flee. They watched the humans dance in the streets and cheer and embrace each other. High Chancellor Morveth watched in silence. Beside her, Kythe was crying. They won, Kythe said. They actually won. They did more than win, Morveth replied quietly. They were not afraid. The most powerful warship in the galaxy appeared above their world, and they were not afraid. They were ready, someone said. Morveth nodded slowly. They have been getting ready for 12 million years. Every war, every disaster, every extinction they survived made them stronger. They are not afraid of us. She turned to face the Council. They have been waiting for us. The chamber was silent. On Earth, Commander Sarah Chen looked down at her homeworld from the ISS. The alien ship was gone. Her planet was still there, scarred and wounded, but alive. Her radio crackled. "Commander Chen, this is Space Command. The hostile has retreated. Repeat, the hostile has retreated. All stations, stand down." Sarah closed her eyes and let out a breath she had been holding for 4 hours. Then she opened her eyes and looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, other beings were watching. Other civilizations, other species who knew about humanity now. Sarah smiled. "Your move," she said quietly. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, the Galactic Council received a message. It came through every channel. Radio waves, light pulses, mathematical patterns. The humans had figured out how the Kreeth ship communicated and copied the technology. It had taken them only 6 months. High Chancellor Morveth gathered the council to listen. Every ambassador attended, even Supreme Commander Rethix, who had been stripped of his rank and waited for trial. His scales had turned gray. He looked like a different creature than the proud warrior who had led the attack. The message began. "This is the United Earth Emergency Council, broadcasting to all intelligent life in the galaxy." The voice was calm, strong, a human female, speaking in perfect galactic common. They had learned the language from the Kreeth ship's computers. "We know you are out there. We know you are watching. We have known for 6 months that we are not alone in the universe. Some of you probably expected us to be afraid. We are not. Some of you expected us to be angry. We are. A little. Your ship killed 47,000 of our people before we drove it away. We do not forget. We will not forget. But we are not here to make threats." The council listened in silence. Morveth noticed that many ambassadors were leaning forward. They wanted to hear more. "We understand why you attacked us. We have read your histories from the Kreeth databases. We know what you think we are. The first children, the failed experiment, the monsters in the dark. You are not entirely wrong." The voice paused. In the chamber, no one moved. "We are violent. We have fought wars for 10,000 years. We have built weapons that could destroy our own world many times over. We have committed acts of cruelty that shame us to remember. There is darkness in us. Real darkness. But there is also light. We are the species that invented hospitals. We are the species that feeds strangers we will never meet. We are the species that runs into burning buildings to save people we do not know. We created music and art and stories and love. We hold our children close and whisper promises to protect them. We are both things, the darkness and the light. We have spent our entire existence fighting this war inside ourselves. Sometimes the darkness wins. Sometimes we fall into cruelty and hatred. But we always get back up. We always try again. We always reach for the light, even when we fail to grasp it. Kythe was crying again. Morveth noticed that she was not the only one. Ambassadors from dozens of species had tears, or their equivalent, running down their faces. So here is our message to the galaxy. To those who want peace, we are listening. We want to trade with you. We want to learn from you. We want to share our music and our stories and our food. We have so many questions. We have wondered about the stars since we first looked up at the night sky. Now we know you are out there, and we want to meet you. To those who want war, we are ready. We have been practicing for this since before we had writing. Every monster in our legends, every demon in our nightmares, every alien invasion in our stories has been preparation. We do not want to fight you, but we will. And we will not stop. We will never stop. That is the one thing we are truly good at. You have a choice. We all have a choice. We can be enemies, or we can be friends. We know which one we prefer. The voice paused again. When it continued, it was softer, almost gentle. We know you are afraid of us. We understand. We are afraid of ourselves sometimes. But fear is not a reason to kill. Fear is a reason to be careful, to be cautious, to learn. Give us a chance. Come to our world. Talk to us. Let us talk to you. We promise we will try our best to be what you hope we can be. We might fail. We often do. But we always try again. That is what makes us human. The message ended. The council chamber was silent for a long time. Ambassadors looked at each other. Some looked at the floor. Some looked at the ceiling. Finally, Kythe stood. "I move that we send a delegation," she said. Her voice was steady. "A peaceful delegation. To talk. To listen. To give them a chance." High Chancellor Morveth looked at the young Silurian. Then she looked at the council. Does anyone oppose? Silence. Does anyone abstain? More silence. Morveth felt something she had not felt in millions of years. She felt hope. The vote is unanimous, she said. For the first time in galactic history, the council is in complete agreement. We will send a delegation to Earth. We will meet the first children. She turned to Kythe. You will lead the delegation. Kythe's eyes went wide. Me? I am the youngest ambassador here. I have no experience with first contact. You are the only one who studied them, the only one who believed in them, the only one who argued for this outcome when everyone else wanted war or isolation. Morveth smiled. It was strange. Her crystal face was not designed for smiling, but she managed. You will represent us. You will speak for the galaxy, and you will give humanity what they asked for, a chance. 1 year later, a fleet of ships entered the Sol system. They were not warships. They were ambassadors, scientists, translators, artists. They came from every species in the galaxy. Commander Sarah Chen watched them approach from the New Earth space station. Humanity had built it in 8 months. They had used technology stolen from the Kreth ship and technology they invented themselves. It was ugly and strange, and it worked perfectly. This is it, she said to her crew. First contact. Real first contact. The lead ship sent a message. Earth Station. This is Galactic Delegation Alpha. We come in peace. May we approach? Sarah smiled. She had practiced this moment in her head 1,000 times. Galactic Delegation Alpha. This is Earth Station. Welcome to our home. We have been waiting for you. She paused. Please come in. We have a lot to talk about. On Nexus Prime, High Chancellor Morveth watched the meeting through a live feed. She watched human and alien shake hands for the first time. She watched Kythe step onto human soil. She watched children from both species look at each other with curiosity instead of fear. Later, alone in her office, she opened the ancient archive one final time. She found the file on humanity, the original precursor notes. At the bottom, there was a message she had never shared with the council. A final note from the precursors, written just before they fled the galaxy. We made them to survive anything. We did not anticipate that anything would include us. They will spread across the galaxy. They will change everything they touch. They will make the universe bigger and stranger and more wonderful than we could imagine. We are afraid of them, but we are also proud of them. They are our first children, our greatest work, our most beautiful mistake. We hope, whoever reads this, that you will see what we could not. We hope you will give them the chance we were too afraid to give. We hope they become what they dream of being. We hope they find their way home. Morveth closed the file. Outside her window, the stars burned bright. The third era was over. The fourth era was beginning. And at its center, a small blue world was finally joining the rest of the universe. The first children had come home.